Lesson 74. Our new word for this lesson is a masculine noun of the second declension, lupus lupi, which means wolf. And I thought it would be fun in this lesson to take a moment to talk about the role that the wolf plays in Roman legend or Roman mythology. And as you can see here in this lesson, I have a picture of a very famous statue. Michael, can you tell us a bit about this statue, where it is, and its significance, and maybe even a little bit about the myth of the she-wolf?
Absolutely. So what we have here is a public domain photograph of the statue known in English as the Capitoline wolf. It resides today in Rome at a museum on the Capitoline Hill known as the Capitolio. And as you can see, it has two parts. The upper part of the statue is a she-wolf, and the bottom part of the statue is a pair of twins.
I think the twins were originally separated from the statue and had to be replaced. Isn't that correct?
Well, Bill, that's partially right. Scientists have done some analysis of this statue, and they believe that it was actually in two parts. The wolf and the twins were created separately. But through the Middle Ages, everybody thought that this was originally one piece of artwork depicting the twins Romulus and Remus from the famous story of Rome's founding in Livy, a Roman historian who wrote in Latin.
So Livy is spelled L-I-V-Y, and he was a Roman author who wrote a huge history of the Roman people, really from the earliest days of Roman history, right?
Right. And in fact, he essentially starts with legends about the city's foundations and the ancestors of the Romans. They had a tradition that they were descended from refugee Trojans from the Trojan War.
And if you have a Latin textbook, like a traditional school textbook of any kind, it will probably have mythological stories like that are taken from Livy. There are just a lot of fun stories from ancient Rome that are reprinted in a lot of textbooks, and they come directly from Livy and his histories. So a lot of those early legends, they're not really true, but they're just fun to read because they're part of the lore and legends of ancient Rome.
And you know, Bill, they're not just a part of ancient Rome. So if you go to Rome today, not only can you see this wonderful piece or these two pieces of artwork in the Capitolio, but in fact, if you look around the streets there, it's on various things like manhole covers, along with a Latin abbreviation, SPQR, Senatus Populusque Romanorum or Romae, depending on who you ask, what the R stands for exactly will change, but it means Romans. So that's the Senate and the people of Rome. And, you know, if you want to talk about something outside of Italy, Italian immigrants, of course, have moved and live all around the world. And especially in the United States, we can see their influence in different cities. So, for example, in New York State, there's a city called Rome, and they have a replica of this statue there given to them by the Italian government around the time of World War II. And in Ohio, we have a city called Cincinnati, named after the ancient Roman hero from the movie Cincinnatus. And that city also has a replica statue of this Capitoline wolf. So you can keep a lookout here, there, and everywhere, really, for a lot of this stuff that comes down directly to us from ancient Roman times.
And the story of Cincinnatus is another really fun story from Livy about ancient Rome. So, Michael, why the wolf and the twins? Why have a statue of a wolf and twins that is so important to Roman history? What is it all about? What's the story?
Well, of course, we'll have to give you the short version here, but there was a woman named Rhea Silvia, and she was a Vestal priestess, and legend says that she fathered the two twins by the god Mars. And now Mars was the god of war in ancient Roman mythology and religion. And as you can imagine, having conquered so many people, the Romans really thought of themselves as pretty good at that war thing. And so the first thing about this story that was important is, of course, that it linked them to this, military prowess as they went and took over different places in the Mediterranean. But we have to get to the wolf, right? So, unfortunately for Rhea Silvia, her cousin was the wicked king of the area that they lived in at a time, which wasn't actually Rome yet, because it hadn't been founded. The twins would do that later.
Right, because this is the very earliest history of the Roman people, even before the city of Rome, right?
Exactly. And so the wicked king, Rhea Silvia's relative, asked that one of his shepherds take these two children out to the river and just leave them there, expose them, and kind of hope that they would die because he was afraid of anybody else having claim to the throne.
Which is a common trope in ancient stories and legends, right?
Oh, yeah, no, children are left at roadsides and on rivers all of the time in all kinds of ancient legends, stories, and religions.
Like the Oedipus story has a very similar part to it.
But let's quickly finish up this story here so that we don't have our listeners waiting all day.
Get to the good part. I want to hear the story.
All right. Well, so eventually, this wolf comes by when it hears the babies crying from the woods, and Livy says that, whether by chance or by divine intervention, and he won't decide which one he thought it really was, unfortunately for us. So we don't know exactly what the Romans thought. But the river was overflowing, and it kept the babies from drowning, and they were fed by this she-wolf until such a time as another shepherd came by, heard these babies crying, and decided to take them in.
And then these two twins, these twin boys, grew up to be Romulus and Remus, the twin brothers who founded the city of Rome. In fact, the word Rome comes from the name Romulus, one of the brothers.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Bill, because like we said, these are legendary tales. So we don't really know if Romulus was a real person. So Romulus looks like it might be a diminutive. So it might mean something like Little Roman.
So the ULUS at the end is a special ending that means it's a smaller version of some other thing.
Just like we saw with Castellum, that's right.
Right, Castrum, and then when you add the ELLUM to the end, you get Castrum turns into Castellum, which means a smaller version of the Castrum.
Exactly.
That's called a diminutive.
Exactly so. So it could be possible, and of course there's no way to go back and prove this until one of you bright people invents a time machine for us. But it may be the case that they had this story of the city's founding, and that Romulus is just sort of a made-up character.
A little Rome.
That's right. And of course, there's a lot more to the story of Romulus and Remus. Most of it's pretty sordid. They work as bandits. They kidnap people. Romulus kills Remus. But we'll have to save that for another time.
Yeah, it doesn't exactly go very smoothly. But anyway, the point we want to make here is that the wolf figures into the history and the legends of Rome as part of the story of how Rome was founded. And you can find all those stories in the Roman historian Livy, Livy. If you get an English translation, you can read all those stories for yourself and have a lot of fun with it.
Right, and maybe someday you'll study enough Latin that you'll be able to read it on your own.